guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing another episode of Wicked Wednesday. Last week we talked about the Amityville Horror House, so if you didn't catch last week, I will link it up here so you can go watch it. This week we are talking about one of my favorite things pretty much ever in the history of the world, The Wizard of Oz. Yes! This is my favorite movie of all time. You can't tell me otherwise. There's no better movie than The Wizard of Oz. There's a lot of crazy stuff that went on with the filming and the set of The Wizard of Oz, so I want to dive into that today. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I do new videos every single Wednesday, and also throughout the week I do other beauty videos, so don't miss those. Without further ado, let's get started. All right, so Wizard of Oz, I just filled in my brows, and I'm actually gonna do my eyes today first because I'm gonna be playing with a new palette. As always, all my details for what I'm using are gonna be listed in the description box, so check that out if you're curious what I'm using. The Wizard of Oz is obviously an American classic. It came out in 1939, and it is considered one of the greatest movies of all time. I think it's the greatest, #1. The filming process was actually really interesting, and there was a lot of dark secrets from behind the scenes of filming this movie that a lot of people don't know about. So there was a lot of crazy mistreatment of the cast. Hollywood studios seemed to think that this film was cursed. If you don't know, The Wizard of Oz was originally a novel, and it was written by Frank Baum. The 1939 movie was the first attempt at recreating it and bringing the novel to life. At least bringing it to the mainstream spotlight, because there were musical recreations. There was one in 1902 that was made. There was a silent movie in 1910 made about the Wizard of Oz. And then there was also a weird adaptation in 1925 making the film all about the scarecrow basically. But that one really flopped hard at the box office. It actually plunged the Hollywood studio that produced it into bankruptcy. And then in 1939, the version we all know and love came to us. So one of the crazy things that they say happened on set is the costumes were extremely torturous and uncomfortable to wear. Burt Lahr, who played the Cowardly Lion, his costume was made from an actual lion's head, and it said that the headpiece for his costume weighed about 90 pounds. So imagine wearing that all day while you're filming. And it didn't have very much ventilation, so he couldn't breathe very well, and he would actually sweat really, really heavily while they were filming the movie. And they say that it took 2 assistants to dry his costume out every night from all the sweat. Buddy Ebsen, who played the Tin Man, his suit was made of metal, obviously, but it was made of real heavy metal, so he could not sit down in his outfit, so he had to stand upright all day. When he got tired, he had to just lean against a board to rest a little bit because he couldn't sit. And he also had an extreme reaction to the face paint that they put on him, and it actually put him in the hospital, causing them to have to recast the entire role. And that's why we know Jack Haley as the Tin Man. So the film actually went through 4 different producers as well. Richard Thorpe was the first producer for the film, and he was insistent that Judy Garland wear a blonde wig and very thick makeup to depict Dorothy. Not that there's anything wrong with thick makeup, as we know. When the original Tin Man got sick from his makeup and was sent to the hospital, the production actually shut down for 2 weeks. The studio ended up firing Thorpe, who was the first producer. They actually hired George Cukor, who was famous for My Fair Lady. He actually encouraged Judy Garland to wear more natural makeup, and he wanted her to kind of play Dorothy less cartoonish and more natural. He later left the film as well because he went to go work on Gone with the Wind. And that's just what he was. He was Gone with the Wind. However, he got fired from Gone with the Wind, and he actually came back to The Wizard of Oz a few weeks later. And it's actually a kind of sad story because he was fired supposedly because they found out that he was gay, which in that time period was definitely not accepted like it is today. Unfortunately, it's very sad, but it's true. These pinks are so bright. So one of the directors, King Vidor, was actually responsible for a lot of the sepia sequences in the movie, and he actually helped one of the other directors, Mervyn LeRoy, with a lot of the post-production of the film. A lot of weird stuff happened with Judy Garland as well, who, as we know, played Dorothy. Apparently, Judy Garland got slapped in the face. And to be honest, I would love to find the person who tried it with Judy Garland because they can take it up with me. I look crazy, I know. Don't judge me. Trust the process. So apparently when they filmed the famous slap scene with the Cowardly Lion...
Shame on you!
What did you do that for?
Judy Garland could not keep her shit together, and she just kept giggling away. And after several ruined takes, because she kept laughing. Director Victor Fleming actually took Judy Garland. He took her aside and slapped her. He slapped her across the face and he told her, go in there and work. The next time she did the scene, she did it perfectly and didn't giggle, obviously, because she just got freaking slapped in the face. Another really weird, sad thing that is said about the film is that Judy Garland might have actually been molested by the Munchkins. Judy Garland's ex-husband actually came out and said that she was molested by the Munchkins on set. And he claimed in his book that he wrote that they would make her miserable on set and they would like force her hands under her dress and they would just make her life miserable, which is just so sad because Judy Garland is a precious angel. These men who played the Munchkins, their age was like 40 or older. All right, sorry, I had to hold my breath during that because, girl, you can't be cutting my crease and talking at the same time. So Margaret Hamilton, let's talk about her for a second. She played the Wicked Witch of the West, and she was actually a former kindergarten teacher, which a lot of people don't know before she starred in this role. A lot of people in real life, after the film was aired, thought she was actually evil in real life. This is kind of like a cool shape, I like it. It's a little different for me. So poor Margaret actually suffered physically from her role as well. She suffered very severe burns. They were 2nd and 3rd degree burns all over her body because the green copper makeup that she was wearing as part of her witch costume got really, really hot in that fire scene in the beginning, the first time we actually see her in the movie. Well, as the Wicked Witch, we all know she's that weird lady that flies around on the freaking bicycle first. But anywho, the first time we see her in the film as the Wicked Witch of the West when she pops up in Munchkinland, that scene, she actually got 2nd and 3rd degree burns under her makeup because her makeup got so hot from the fire. And then her stunt double actually got injured pretty badly as well. She spent months in the hospital after her prop broom exploded. And they were using this double because poor Margaret Hamilton got hurt in the first place. So they decided to use a stunt double and then she got hurt. Ooh. That's a cool little eye thing going on. Back to the story. Wow, I got caught up in this eye look. Okay, so let's talk about the Cowardly Lion for a sec. Mr. Brett Lair was not allowed to eat while he was in his costume. How torturous is that? I would die. His makeup was so difficult to apply that he wasn't allowed to eat because they were afraid to mess it up. And at first he tried to be really agreeable and he tried to just live on milkshakes and soup while he was in costume, which, oh my God, that doesn't sound too bad. Filming the movie took years. So eventually he was like, listen, you're just gonna have to reapply my makeup after lunch. This is some BS. Another weird thing, they almost did not put Somewhere Over the Rainbow into the movie, which is the most iconic song of the whole movie. The producers thought that it was too slow and too long for younger children to actually want to watch it. So they almost cut it from the movie. They also thought it was too depressing, but then one of the producers threw a fit and said that he was gonna quit completely if they took that out of the movie. So good for you, sir. You saved the Wizard of Oz. I'm gonna go do the other eye off camera because this takes me way too long to recreate. And I'll be right back. Okay, I just finished my eyes. I added rhinestones because I just can't freaking help myself. I'm sorry. I'm not even sorry. I'm not sorry. I will never apologize for adding rhinestones. Also, this like greeny shade that's in my inner corner, I'm kind of obsessed with. The Wizard of Oz actually flopped at the box office. Can you believe it? I can't believe it because how could The Wizard of Oz, the greatest movie of all time, flop at the box office? But it did. So the movie brought in $3 million during its initial launch at the movie theater, which made it a really great success for its time. However, the high cost of the production and just everything that went into the film, all the cast changes, the director changes, it basically made them break even. So they really didn't make much money at all, if any, off of the film. They spent so much in production. It was actually pulled from theaters a lot faster than a lot of competing titles like Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind kept playing for several years, so it lasted a lot longer than The Wizard of Oz in theaters, which is crazy. The studio executives eventually decided that they wanted a sequel to the movie, but it didn't happen for several reasons. Personally, I'm happy that there was no sequel because when something is great, just leave it alone. Judy Garland's performance in the original film obviously put her at the top of the casting list for Dorothy, but she actually got tied up for years to come after the Wizard of Oz with just other projects that she had taken on. Also, they had a lot of little snafus that came up with trying to produce the second one, and the cost of producing the film just ended up not being worth it, so they didn't do it. So The Wizard of Oz didn't get a proper sequel until Disney took it on in 1985 with Return to Oz. So that was like 50 years later. A really popular topic surrounding weird things that happened on the set was that a munchkin actually committed suicide. And that is actually not true. There is a clip where they show what looks like a munchkin hanging himself in the background of the film, and it's actually not true.
See it swaying back and forth? That's crazy, and then they zoom out so you can't really see it too well.
So this scene happens after Dorothy and the Scarecrow attempt to pick apples, and they find the Tin Man, and they head down the yellow brick road, and a little figure in the distance appears to be someone hanging himself in the background. Not true. It was actually not a suicide caught on film, it was a bird. So another kind of weird thing that you would never think would happen was one of the studio producers took home the most famous prop from the entire movie, which was, of course, the ruby slippers, and he took them home for, can you guess the price? He took them home for free. So Kurt Warner, who was the set designer and wardrobe assistant in Hollywood in the 1970s, when MGM needed to clean out their warehouse, they had the ruby slippers. He was one of the people who helped clean out the warehouse. And they basically said, hey, if you help us, you can take home anything you want for free. What did he take? The ruby slippers. He also took home Scarlett O'Hara's dress, Humphrey Bogart's trench coat, and several pairs of ruby slippers, because of course there was not just one. Another kind of crazy thing, Shirley Temple almost played the role of Dorothy instead of Judy Garland. Personally, I was never a huge Shirley Temple fan, but Judy Garland all freaking day long. Some people claim that MGM had their eye on Shirley Temple to play the role of Dorothy. However, Judy Garland was always at the top of their list, as she should be. With Shirley Temple's proven success rate with films and things, they did consider her, but at the end of the day, Judy Garland was the woman for the job. Obviously, can you imagine anyone but Judy Garland playing Dorothy? Because I cannot. And they ended up choosing her because of her vocal range and her obvious talent, as we can all see in the movie, duh. I personally think Judy Garland sings way better than Shirley Temple. I just think of that stupid animal crackers in my soup shit, and that's not Dorothy. Another fun fact, Glinda was actually much older than she appeared, and the Wicked Witch of the West was a lot younger than her. It really looks like Glinda is younger because of the way that they portray her, and that the Wicked Witch is old and ugly, but Glinda was actually a lot younger, which I think is pretty interesting. I will never stop putting blush on my nose. Don't even ask me to, because I will never stop. So the Wicked Witch of the West, Margaret Hamilton, was only 36 years old. I know, she looks way older. And Billie Burke, who played Glinda, she was 54. It's just insane how they made her look so young, and they made the witch look so old when that was not the case at all. It just blows my mind, man. Let's talk about Mr. Scarecrow for a sec. Ray Bolger played the Scarecrow. In the 1930s, costumes and makeup and things like that were not nearly what they are today. Poor Ray's Scarecrow makeup left him with serious scars all over his face. He had deeply embedded marks everywhere that didn't go away for like a year. So luckily, makeup has come a long way, obviously, for films and things like that. So this would never happen in today's world, hopefully, fingers crossed, but the makeup was just not where it is today. Poor Ray had lots of marks all over his face that did not go away for a long time. So let's talk about our favorite little pup. Toto, who was Dorothy's dog in the film, actually got paid more than the majority of the Munchkins did, which is insane because he's a dog. His name in real life was Terry the Terrier. He was a little Karen Terrier, and he catapulted to fame when he walked down the yellow brick road. He made about $125 a week, which was a lot more than some of the Munchkins were getting paid. He did not have the easiest job. Apparently, he had to take a few days off when someone stepped on his foot and it hurt him a little bit, so he had a very difficult job. He worked hard for his money. Another kind of crazy thing was that this movie took millions of dollars to make, which in the 1930s is a little crazy. It was one of the most expensive movies to make of its time. And it rivals the budgets of some films that are being made today that include way more advanced CGI technology and things like that. So it's just wild to think about. And in total, the movie was $3 million to create. Personally, I think it was worth every penny. This was actually one of the only films to air on television every year. Once it aired on television is when it became extremely popular. By the time that it actually aired on television, it had won a few Oscars, it had been a success at the box office. It wasn't actually until it came into people's homes and aired on television that it became the cult classic that it is today. At one point, it was said that 50% of people were watching The Wizard of Oz, and the ratings just remained so good that they just kept playing it on TV. I mean, if people are watching it, why wouldn't they? Some actually say that The Wizard of Oz killed Judy Garland. Judy Garland unfortunately passed away of a drug overdose in 1969, and a lot of people think that The Wizard of Oz is partially to blame. In the film, she played supposedly a prepubescent girl. She was supposed to be a very young girl in the film, and she was already a teenager by the time she had started filming The Wizard of Oz. So she had to wear a lot of really tightly bound corsets to cover her breasts and to kind of disguise her more womanly figure because they wanted her to appear much younger. They would also drug her at this time to help her sleep, and she was prescribed amphetamines to help keep her weight down, which is just so freaking sad. She was super young when she did The Wizard of Oz, and it's just really sad that like that was her first kind of experience with drugs, and it got worse as time went on. And sadly, they think that the drug use that started when she was on the set of The Wizard of Oz is what eventually led to her drug addiction and ended up killing her. It's just really sad that that was kind of put into her life at such a young age, and it just she never was able to really recover from that. So back to the Wicked Witch of the West, Margaret Hamilton. She endured a lot of torture as well, just like Judy Garland. Now granted, she was in her 30s, she was much older than Judy at the time. Aside from being burned from her copper face paint and from all the hatred she was receiving from people just thinking she was evil outside of the film, she actually had a lot of scenes that were cut because they were deemed too scary for children. So I'm definitely kind of curious about what those were. I'm sure you can probably find deleted scenes somewhere out there. It was also said that the woman who played Glinda, her name was Billie Burke, apparently had a much more luxurious dressing room than the Wicked Witch of the West, Margaret Hamilton. So I don't know where that came from, but that seems kind of unfair to me that they gave the Good Witch the better dressing room. It's kind of funny actually. Margaret Hamilton actually admitted that she used to sneak into Billie's dressing room on the days that she wasn't on set so she could use the better dressing room, which I think is kind of funny. That's something I would totally do. And poor Margaret actually described her own dressing room as really awful. Another kind of fun prop fact about the movie is that Dorothy's slippers were almost actually silver. They almost didn't do the ruby slipper thing, which damn, what a disappointment that would have been. So in the Wizard of Oz books, Dorothy's slippers were actually silver, believe it or not. So they almost kept that for the film. Thank God they didn't, because I just can't imagine them any other color. And the color of the shoes were actually changed because they wanted to show off the Technicolor of the film since it was so groundbreaking. Other movies weren't really being shown in Technicolor yet, so they wanted to show off how good their technology was for this film, and they made the slippers ruby. Actually, believe it or not, Disney's Snow White was a huge inspiration for the way that they filmed The Wizard of Oz. It did really, really well, and they were convinced that The Wizard of Oz would do equally as well if they kind of followed in the same footsteps. Another little fun fact, the horses of color actually got their color from Jell-O. During the scene that they filmed the horses of a different color, they actually dyed the horses with Jell-O. Contrary to popular belief, that was not done with CGI, they actually dyed the horses. And apparently these scenes had to be shot very quickly because the horses liked to lick off the Jell-O, which I think is pretty funny. So it seems like the horses were actually treated better than anybody on this film. Another kind of fun fact, the Great and Powerful Oz actually made multiple appearances during the movie that you wouldn't even know about. He played 5 different roles. Not only did he depict the Great and Powerful Oz, but he also played the fortune teller in the beginning of the film, which we all, I'm sure, knew. He was the cabbie who drove the horse of a different color. He was a guard at the Wizard's Palace, and also he was the doorkeeper. And last but not least, the actors of the film were very close, not just on screen, but they were also very close off screen. Judy Garland's daughter, Liza Minnelli, actually went on to marry Jack Haley, who was the Tin Man's son. Ray Bolger, who played the Scarecrow, actually gave a eulogy at Morgan Hamilton, who was the Wicked Witch of the West's funeral, which I think is really sweet. Jack Haley, who played the Tin Man, was actually the godfather to Bert Lair, who was the Cowardly Lion's son. So they were obviously very, very close. They remained lifelong friends. They obviously had great relationships on and off screen. Let me know if you guys liked this video. It was a little bit of a different one for a Wicked Wednesday, but I love The Wizard of Oz so much that I thought it'd be cool to kind of share some crazy things that happened behind the scenes. And a lot of it was wicked. A lot of it was not good. Yeah, let me know if you guys like this type of video where it's more of like a behind the scenes look at a popular movie. It was very, very dark. So let me know what you guys thought of this video. Comment down below. Let me know if you're a big fan of The Wizard of Oz too. I definitely am. It is still to this day my all-time favorite movie, and that will probably never change. It's just a classic that you can just never get tired of. Let me know what you guys thought. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a big thumbs up, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.